In this video, we're going to talk about the home buying process from start to finish. So you're going to want to stick around if you're interested in buying a home in the next couple months. Now, if you haven't already watched it, I have another video asking 5 questions if you're thinking about buying a home to strategically prepare yourself. So if you haven't watched that yet, take a look at that. I'll link it here. If not, let's get after it. Hey, if this is your first visit to the channel and you're looking to learn everything there is to know about the Midtown direct suburbs of New York City, then subscribe below and tap the notification bell so you can be the first to hear about the current market conditions here in New Jersey and New York. Hey, I'm Jeff. The team and I, we get calls every day from people just like you who are thinking about moving to one of New York City's amazing suburbs, and we love it. So whether you're moving in 7 days or 7 months, give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email so we can help you find the perfect place. So as I said, we're going to go through the entire process from start to finish. This is with regards to New Jersey, but it's going to be pretty similar if you're in another state. So you might want to keep watching and find out more. But overall, we're going to go through the very first steps you should be taking, and then getting you all the way to those keys and opening the door. So let's jump into the computer so I can show you a slide that kind of takes you all the way through. Then we can discuss in the comments if you have any questions, or feel free to reach out to us as well by email or phone. We'd love to speak with you. The first thing to do, obviously, is start with the right team. That's probably why you're watching this video, so you can learn a little bit. But once you reach out to us, we can really get things moving. And the team isn't just your agent. Your agent has contacts that are in the legal field. Your agent has contacts that are in the mortgage community, home inspection business. So these are the 3 key players. And like I said before, the agent's going to sort of act as your quarterback to get you through this process. It's not like buying a package on Amazon that you're just going to get shipped to your door. There is some hard work. And the first step that is hard work for you is the loan pre-approval. So this is your second step. If we've talked about, finding a team, you've already been introduced, you get in touch with them. Hopefully it's us, but if not, we understand there's a lot of people out there, but hopefully it's us. The first people you're gonna talk to next, or I should say the next people you're gonna talk to, is your loan originator, your bank originator, or your mortgage broker. And the reason why that's key is because we wanna establish what your budget is. We talked about that in the 5 questions. What's your budget? But in this case, we really need to know what's the bank going to give. You might have your own budget that you think you can handle, but we also want to know what the bank's actually going to be willing to give you. Because if you can't get the size of loan that you're anticipating, then obviously that's going to change the picture. So the bank's going to go through, ask you some questions, and they're going to ask you to submit your tax returns, probably 2 years worth. They're going to ask you for some current bank statements, and they're going to ask you for a few other things if you have like assets in, let's say stock market or whatever it is. They want to see what that picture is, but their main goal is to find out what your cash flow is in terms of income, how that stacks up on your W-2. If you've got other sources of income, they want to tally all that up so that they can establish what's called a debt to income ratio. We've talked about that in the previous video. And we look at this on a monthly gross basis. So we're dividing your annual salary by 12. And if there's any extras in there, like say you have some income from some rental properties, whatever that is, you add that in, divide by 12, and that's your monthly gross income. And on top of that, we're gonna have whatever the mortgage, principal, interest, if there's maintenance, if there's gonna be property taxes. So we tally all that up, and then we divide it by the gross income. That gives us our debt to income ratio. So the bank probably wants to see somewhere around 30%. They can go higher than that, but you want to check with them and see what that lender works with. Sometimes they make exceptions. It all depends on certain things. Credit score is also going to come into play. They're going to do a credit evaluation on you, pull a hard credit on your history, and see if everything's looking good there. The higher the credit, the better the interest rate. That's also going to be something to think about. They're going to look at that, and then they're going to come back with a pre-approval letter. Once they've done all their homework on you, they feel confident, they're going to give you that pre-approval letter. Now, it is purely for pre-approval, but it's better than what's called a pre-qualification letter. Pre-qualification is sometimes they just do a quick call with you over the phone. If what you say is true, then this is how much we can lend. Pre-approval is a much more in-depth where they take a look at those tax returns, the W-2s, and they say, okay, yeah, we feel confident. And again, going back to my other video where I talk about, is there a combination of people on the mortgage that's applying for the loan? Is that 2 people? Is that 1 person? Maybe it's 3 people. Maybe you're buying an investment property and there's 3 people in the pool. Whatever it is, they're gonna look at that and see how it goes. So now that we have that pre-approval, we're ready to go. Because the other thing to keep in mind is if we just started our search, we found someone we love, we go to make an offer, the listing agent says, okay, give me your pre-approval so I can share it with the sellers and make sure you're vetted and qualified. If you don't have that in hand, what's gonna happen? You're gonna probably miss out on that property. So you wanna have that piece at the beginning, not in the middle. So once we feel comfortable, we know, okay, here's the budget, we can start setting up the parameters for the search. And when you do the search, you're probably gonna have things in the background looking, but as agents, we're gonna set you up on an automatic email updater that's gonna send you homes in the areas you're looking in, and the price range you're looking in, and with the criteria you're looking at. And like I said in the last video, again, not to sound like a broken record here, comparing back to the last video, but we're going to look at things that are a little bit wider than that specific wish list, because we want to capture some of the outliers for you that might actually work, because that perfect home, while being perfect, quote unquote, it might not actually exist. So we want to find something that's the closest we can, and then you're either going to feel comfortable with that, or later on you'll plan to make some modifications to make it exactly what you want. But for this purpose, we have to think a little bit broader, keep that search wide open. So what happens after that? So now we're going to get you on some viewings and tours. And that can happen in 2 pieces, where probably the first go around we'll come out with you, we'll set up some home tours. Those might be one-on-one, those might be open houses. If it's a weekend, they're probably going to be open houses. You don't necessarily always have to go out with the agent. If there is an open house, you can certainly go on your own, check in with us in case it's by appointment or something like that, where we need to set up a specific time for you. Or there might not be an open house, we'll get you a private appointment with us and the agent. Or sometimes they just let us in, they have lock boxes, we can get the keys and get in and show you the place. It all depends on if someone's living in the home and they feel comfortable with strangers coming in with keys. If it's empty, sometimes they do give us those lock boxes. So everything is gonna depend on what the situation of the home is. Now, how long are all these things gonna take? So let's step back a little bit. Obviously meeting the team, that can be a 2-hour process, that could be a 1 week. It all depends on how quickly you feel comfortable with getting comfortable with us and hiring us. So hopefully that can go quickly. You're watching these videos, getting to know us. Hopefully at this point you know, like, and trust us, or you're building that up over time as you watch other videos on the channel. Let's say that goes quickly. You've reached out, you're ready to go. Now the loan pre-approval process can go as short as a couple days, or it can take as long as a week. The reason why that's so wide is because it all depends on how fast you can get your documents to the loan officer. You can have that initial conversation with them, but then if things get busy with work or whatever it is, life happens, and you forget to send them the documents, then they're just sitting around waiting for that and working on other people's cases. So you want to basically, after this video, prepare those documents, get them ready so you're ready to send that off. So that can be anywhere from like 2 to 3 days all the way to a week or 2, depending on your schedule and how fast you're ready to go. Now the search that we were just talking about, that's the part that's the biggest variable. You could see a home the first weekend, say, I love this home, I want to make an offer. It can be over in a couple days, and we'll make the offer and get that going. But most of the time, that's not what happens. It might take a couple weeks, it might take a couple months. It all depends on the inventory that's coming up and how fast we can get you in that apartment, or sorry, I should say house. Most of the places in the suburbs are houses. Or maybe it's a townhouse. There are obviously condos in the suburbs, but anyways, yeah, that can vary dramatically. So this can be, a short little blip, or it could be a long blip. And this format here that I'm, overlaying this chart is sort of like a Gantt chart. It's sort of a timeline, first priorities, and then we're stepping down from there. So let's say we found the home, maybe it took a couple weeks, maybe it took a couple months. We know this is the right property. Maybe we're gonna make offers on a couple places because we might not win the first one, but however it is, we're gonna go forward with an offer on the one that you like. And first we're gonna decide about the price. We're gonna do some comparables analysis, make sure the pricing is within line with what we think the bank's gonna allow, and make you feel comfortable that you're getting the best deal for you. And I say the best deal for you because it's not always gonna be the best price for you, but it's somewhere like that happy medium where you and the seller agree, okay, this is a fair deal for everyone. So we're gonna put together the price and the terms. Terms could be, are you buying with cash? Are you buying with financing? How quickly can you close on the loan? If you're buying cash, you might promise that you're going to close on the house very quickly. So that's your term. It's basically your conditions. The other condition might be that you want to have a home inspection. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But these are all the sort of wish list items on that offer that make you feel the most comfort. Now, we also have to keep in mind that the more things we put on the list, maybe the less likely the sellers to accept it. So we want to have a happy medium there that gives you the most protection, but also gives them reassurance that you're the right person to buy this home and close the deal. Because at the end of the day, they want to. It's sort of a marriage. That contract that we're talk about is a marriage, and they want to make sure that you're right for them and able to finalize the deal. Now in New Jersey, we're going to submit that offer in the form of a standard contract. This is something that the state and the board have pre-agreed. This is from a long time ago. So this is a standard contract. It does seem scary at first because you're saying, wait, Jeff, I have to sign a contract right away. But really you're signing yourself up to make that bid. And if the seller likes it, he's going to countersign. Now, does that mean you're in contract? Yes, technically, once the seller accepts that and countersigns, you're in contract. But we're going to talk about the next phase, which is the contract review period. But let's back up a little bit. Okay, there might be some back and forth, right? So the seller might say, okay, I like your offer, but it's a little bit low. So let's meet in the middle. Let's figure something out. There's always that negotiation, that back and forth. But once we've settled on the price and the terms, we update the contract. You'll sign it again, and they'll sign it, verifying that they agree. So now you're sort of in contract, right? But it's not officially a full contract, because the second we get that, we're going to bring it over to the attorney, and they're going to take it into review. Now we're sort of out of that official contract period where it's like full on. This is unique to New Jersey, where you sign that standard contract, but the attorneys say, whoa, wait a second. You guys agreed that contract years ago with your MLS board and the state. I don't really feel comfortable with that. So they have their boilerplate terms that they want to add to that contract. So you're going to essentially go back and say to the sellers, okay, yeah, so-and-so attorney, they're going to be probably talking attorney to attorney at that point, and they're going to add those things. The sellers also might have their list of things that's not in the standard contract that they want to add to that. So that's all the legal stuff. We don't get into that. That's all between the attorneys, but they're going to finalize that contract and get you comfortable. At this point, either of you could back out because something goes wrong, you don't want to deal with it. But let's say you're all happy, you're moving forward. We're going to complete the review. We're going to lock up that property just for you. And at that point, we release the review period, and then earnest money deposit comes. So this is where we're going to talk about like a 10% deposit. We call it earnest money because you're basically putting in an escrow, promising, okay, I'm going to buy this, I'm putting this 10% on the line. If it doesn't go through, then we're going to have to figure that out, but most likely I'm going to give it to you because I didn't fulfill my promise. That's why it's earnest money. So that goes into the seller's attorney's escrow account, and it sits there. No one touches it. It can earn a little interest as it's waiting, but the rest of the money is going to come later when we do the closing. So now we're in contract. It's now a legally binding document, fully legally binding, and we're going to move on to the financing and the home inspection. Now, let's say we didn't have a home inspection as one of our terms. That's fine. It's an as-is sale. We're going to move along, get our financing in order, or if it's cash, we're going to liquidate our funds, get that in order. But let's say we did have that term in there, the home inspection. Well, now we're going to hire a home inspector. We didn't want to have to pay him before. We didn't know we had the house officially. Now we do. Let's pay him the price to get that home inspected. See if there's anything that's just an outlier that we couldn't anticipate the house having a problem with. They're going to look at the basement, the roof, these kinds of things. Check it out. They might want to do a radon test in the basement because in this area you have a lot of stone in the ground. there could be rate on it. It's very normal, happened to me when I bought, and there's ways to mitigate it, or the home might already have that, so it might not even show up in the test. It could be normal. So they're going to go through this checklist, make sure it's okay. If there are any items that are outstanding that make you feel uncomfortable, because we have that clause in there, we have the ability to try and get out of the contract or renegotiate a little bit. So sometimes we say, okay, we're not comfortable with this, you guys fix it up for us before we close. Or they might say, well, we don't want to do the work, we'll give you a little bit of a credit at the closing table. All this can be worked out with that home buying inspection period. So no promises there. It all depends on what the issue is and what we think it's going to cost to fix. All these things need to be established. But hopefully it's a good home. There's no problems. We can move past that period very quickly. The other thing we want to do immediately is we're going to want to lock in the rate. And the reason for that is now the clock is ticking to get that financing. Before that, we didn't want to lock it in case the rate fluctuated a lot. And you could lock it in if you think it's a really good rate before you sign the contract, but it's not advised because then the clock is ticking, and if that runs out, you might have to pay an extension fee. So you want to kind of avoid those little fees here and there. So if we do that right after we sign the contract, lock it in, we have whatever that period is that the bank gives us. Sometimes it's 30 days, sometimes 45, sometimes 60. Hopefully they give you as much time as they can. That locks it in for you, and then we get everything finalized. We get the loan application in, and we submit all the documents. Once the loan application's in and everything goes well, they're going to give you what's called a commitment letter. That commitment letter, it's all, the appraisal's already happened, the bank's underwritten everything, they give you that commitment letter, and from there, you're basically ready to go. At that point, we need to just schedule things with the closing department of the bank's lawyer, the sellers, the buyer's attorney, get everybody on board with when that closing can be. But before we can get there, you need what's called the clear to close. So the bank says, okay, yes, we have the commitment, but actually your pay stubs are out of date, so I want to see a new round of pay stubs. Your bank statements are out of date, so I want to get a new set of bank statements. Sometimes they do what's called a employment verification. So we want to get all that established ahead of time, and then they say, okay, we're going to clear you to close. Here you go. The lawyers can do that and get everything set up. So at that point, the lawyers, the title people, everybody's working together. They say, yep, I can close on X date. Let's set that in the calendar at 2 o'clock. We'll meet at my office. Everyone comes. Now, in these days, some of these people that are normally going to come to the closing table, they can do their work remotely, and they'll submit documents ahead of time and FedEx them where they need to be. So sometimes when you get to the closing table, there's only a couple people there. Now, you're gonna set a date, like I said, and on that date or the day before, we're gonna try and do a walkthrough of the home, make sure nothing's happened, no damage, no fires, took the house away, whatever it is. We want to make sure that it's actually there, you're buying it, and you're not buying just a piece of dirt that vanished. So we do that ahead of time. If there is any damage that we want to be aware of, we'll bring that to the closing table and we'll say, okay, Mr. Seller, actually, when you're moving out, you scratched the wall up here. I'd like for you to either fix that tonight, or, we're going to do a little closing credit so I can hire a painter or a handyman to deal with that tomorrow or in the coming days and weeks. Let's say all that goes well, sign all the documents, sign the mortgage, sign all the title stuff, and the closing happens. It's completed. Everyone passes the checks around. Everyone's settled. You're going to bring that remaining 10%. If let's say it's a 20% down purchase, 10% went into the escrow at the beginning, and 10% is coming at the closing. You're also going to bring a check for any closing fees that the bank might be charging, mortgage recording tax. If it's above $1 million in New Jersey, there's a mansion tax. Title insurance, all these little things add up to extra fees above and beyond the down payment. So if you're 20% down of the purchase price, you're probably going to want to assume like 3-4% to be safe of the purchase price for closing costs. So we didn't talk about that at the beginning, apologies, but that's going to come at the end as well, so you'll pay that, and you're going to have to pay your attorney at that point. Now the good thing is the agents, they're all paid by the seller typically. And I say typically because if it's an MLS transaction where it's 2 brokers on the same MLS. They have a co-broke agreement within that MLS, and the seller pays the fees. Now, if it's not on the MLS, let's say it's a for sale by owner, you probably heard the term FSBO, then in that case, we're gonna have to pre-agree something with the seller. Either the seller pays the fee, there's no listing agent, so the seller's gonna pay a fee to the buyer's agent, or the seller says, no, I'm giving you a great deal, I'm not paying you any fees. Then we have to pre-agree something on the side amongst ourselves. That does happen from time to time, but not that often. Most of the time the seller is going to be happy that you brought them a buyer, and they're going to pay that fee at the closing table. So everyone's delivered the checks, and here comes the keys. We got those ready to hand off, and at that point the deal is complete. The ownership has changed hands. The title people are going to go away and they're going to file those documents. So you might not see it online or at your county clerk's office that day, but within time they'll file those papers, and the ownership, the title, the deed is transferred to you. At that point you can go over that night and check out the home. It's yours to move in and get ready and prepare for the next steps. So I hope that was a helpful process. I just want to point out, these are sort of key responsibilities that line up with each. I'll put a link in the description so you can look at this chart, and feel free to make comments. These key responsibilities line up below, so you'll see a lot of the front end work is with you and the bank, then you and the agent finding the home, the agent makes the offer, and you and the attorney work on the contract, get that settled. Obviously the agent doesn't disappear at that point. They're the ones sort of like quarterbacking. Buyers, with the assistance of the agent, are going to work on that financing and home inspection, and at the end you and the attorney, you the buyer and the attorney, are in lockstep to try and close everything out. So I hope you found that helpful, and like I said, if you haven't watched the 5-question video, you should definitely check that out. I'll link it above right here. Yeah, if there's any questions, definitely get in touch with us. We'd love to help you get on this journey. It seems complicated, but in reality, if you have that help, if you have that team, we're here to kind of guide you through and focus on the why. Why are you buying? What's your reason for doing so? And we're gonna get you to the end of the road and get you those keys. So my name's Jeff. I hope you found that helpful, and we'll see you in the next video.